Hello and welcome to the LFC Transfer Rooms live stream. My name is Rigo. I'm your host today, and I'm joined by Race as well as Dan. How are you guys doing? I'll start off with your Race. How's it going today?
Doing good. We finally got a game this week and some more news coming on, so it should be an exciting one.
Definitely. We have a match coming up on Wednesday. How are you doing, Dan?
Good. Yeah, I'm also excited for the match on Wednesday against, I think it's how you pronounce it, is Karlsruhe, and I think they're a third tier German team, so it's gonna be nice to see like all the different teenagers, especially seeing Mac, or I guess Gary as we're calling him now, and
I hope not.
like,
I certainly hope we don't go with that Gary nickname for him. He has an awesome name, Alexis.
yeah.
Ali, there a bunch of variations we can go off of that, but Gary, come on now.
Hey, Klopp started it. I didn't start this trend. This was the manager.
Yeah, when I saw that clip of Klopp calling him Gary, a little cringy, at least to me a bit, but hopefully not. Hopefully they don't call him Colo either, or redhead or whatever the case might be, because I know he's not a fan of that, but. I'm glad both of you guys are doing well. Chat comments are live and popping. Hello, Muse. Hello, Anthony. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. As always, make sure to like and subscribe if you have not already. It definitely helps us out here on the channel. So let's kick things off with today's first topic, and that would be Klopp calls Colwill and Chelsea to whine to the FA. We've seen this happen before with Virgil van Dijk, and it delayed his move to Anfield for 6 months. I'll go over and reverse order to you, Dan. What do you think about this with Klopp perhaps having communication outside of what Chelsea would deem appropriate? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm surprised it's coming out now. Now Liverpool are in Stuttgart and they're doing all their focusing and training. If this had come out 2 or 3 weeks ago, I would be more worried, so to speak. I wouldn't be surprised if Klopp had talked to Colwell or had been talking to him in the past couple of weeks. But because Liverpool are now in a camp, and this report's coming out from tertiary channels, not even the primary journalist, which was what happened with Van Dijk, which is that all the primary journalists were the ones breaking the news, and then this became a big deal much earlier. I'm not surprised that, like, our interest in Colwell hasn't been hidden, so to speak, even going all the way back to the Szoboszlai transfer. And back then I was even saying on stream that Colwell strikes me as the one they're really, really going to try and push for. I'm not surprised, but I don't know how much credence to give this, especially the reporting to the FA, because I feel like this would have been much bigger news 2 or 3 weeks ago rather than it being reported now.
Yeah, and the report came from Felix Johnston, an apparent Chelsea ITK. So again, we kind of have to take this with a grain of salt. I'll kick it over to you, Race. Do you think our interest in Colwell is genuine? And do you think Klopp would have already reached out to the player?
I think the interest is definitely there. I mean, I think having Cole in would be a really good fit and a really good transfer to bring in, because when you look at kind of our center back room right now, it's obviously Van Dijk is the mainstay, and then next to him, it's kind of been, I think Konate has been the strongest partner next to him in his last couple of years. Then you have Joe Gomez and Joel Matip, and Matip's been good on his day, but he has been shown to be injury prone in the past. And then of course his contract is coming up, I think, next summer, and Gomez just has been very inconsistent and had some really poor performances last year. So if you bring in Colwell, I think he would kind of push for that starting spot really next to Konate, and if not, just be a really good depth piece. And we can talk about the transfer fee and what that could be, but the interest is definitely there, and I think it'd be a really nice fit in our team. And he has the Premier League experience. He's already been with a big club in terms of training and kind of knowing how big clubs operate and stuff like that. And so just bringing him over to our side, I think would be a really positive transfer for us. And if there's been contact between them, I wouldn't be surprised if there is. Again, it's when Klopp kind of sees a player that he wants, he kind of zeroes in on that, or the whole kind of scouting department does, and we'll see. If anything amounts, anything comes of it.
And on topic of Colwill, what do you think would be a fair price or valuation on him, especially dealing with Chelsea? I'll go with you, Race, and then go to you, Dan.
Yeah, I guess I've seen kind of the $40 million range. I think is what's been floating around there. He's 20 years old, and so he's kind of had a season-ish in the Premier League, so he's an established, I think he's proven himself in this league, so he's definitely not just some squad player that we're going after. I think Chelsea are kind of looking at him, if they can keep him around. He's going to be kind of their, in their starting 11, hopefully to begin this season. So he's definitely got some value. So it will be, we'll have to pay up for it. And certainly Chelsea, I'm sure, won't be, easy in any negotiations with us, especially someone else challenging in the top 6. So, they'll kind of, look to up the price, get an extra few pounds or, here and there. And their chance for business has been very aggressive, so they're trying to get funds as well. So I'm sure it'll be more than 40 million.
So around fair valuation around 40 million. What do you think, Dan? Is that fair in your opinion?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think roughly 40 to 50 million is probably what a fair valuation is in a not so inflated market. Again, the market right now is very, very weird. We're going to come on to it later, but we're talking about Fabinho for 40 million, Henderson possibly for 20 million. Much older DMs. The 105 million for Declan Rice is absolutely insane, considering what he moved for compared to like other midfielders that moved last year, like Aurelien Tchouameni, who I think was 65 to 85, I think it was, with add-ons from Monaco to Madrid. I think 40 to 50 is the fair valuation for where he's at now. He has 2 years on his contract. He has 1 year left. And right now, if what I imagined the conversations have been with Klopp and Colwill is, one, it's like Klopp once selling him on the project, selling him on what he's going to be, saying, hey, you're a long-term replacement for Van Dijk, but you're going to get, 25 starts a season, 25 to 30, and then plus whatever games we're going to add you into. And I think right now the conversation for Liverpool is mostly building the bridges with Colwill, telling them don't sign a new contract with Chelsea. And if Chelsea don't sell you this year, we're going to try and make it work that we're going to buy you next year. And from Chelsea's perspective, they're very much in a situation where they spent $500 million, close to $1 billion since Todd Bowley's come in. So they're going to have to find some way to make FFP work, even though they're not in Europe this year, which helps them a lot with kind of really just inflating their bill and then trying to offset those costs in the future. So right now, Liverpool are trying to nail this transfer early, build all the bridges, get all the fees done. I imagine behind the scenes early with Colwell's camp, and then work it out with Chelsea to try and get him. I think they're trying to push it for this summer, but I think it's most likely probably going to be next summer that we see that transfer happening, because he'll have 1 year left on his deal. And if they can get everything done, then they're going to force Chelsea to the negotiation table.
Yeah, and I guess the biggest thing for Colwill, obviously, I think he wants to be in contention for major minutes at Euro 2024 with the England team. So he's looking for game time this season. Chelsea have a bunch of CBs already, so I know a lot has been said. Waiting for him to come back from his holiday post the under 21 championship. So we'll see. He has to have the conversation with Pochettino and go from there. But I'm not sure we should be barking up this tree, considering how hard negotiation Chelsea tend to be. They took a while hashing out the Havertz deal for 65 million. I'm surprised they got 65 million from Arsenal for him. And then by that same token, perhaps we miss out on other players that we can get and bring them into the preseason, because we're already in preseason. As we said at the top of the stream, we have our first match on Wednesday, and these players need to start getting reps with their squad. And I know Klopp wouldn't be. I know he wants talent, but I'm sure he wants the talent on hand already and doesn't want to wait two weeks.
Yeah, and just on that, Rigo, I think it's interesting the fact we haven't sold a center back. I know at the start of the window we were talking about selling Matt Tip. I think right now, if the pitch to Colwill or any defender right now is that you're coming in and you're going to get minutes, but it's going to be easily managed. And I think there wouldn't be an expectation for them to start right away, unless for some reason we're selling a defender like a Simicast or a Matt Tip, or we buy a right back or something. That's the only reason that would like accelerate this deal to happen like really, really quickly. And like you mentioned, yeah, with Chelsea and the hard negotiations and barking up this tree, I just think right now Liverpool just want to be in the conversation. Whether or not they actually get him in the end is going to be, up to a matter of the negotiators and so many other factors that we can talk about later on. But I think they have to be, because Colwell kind of is the next like center back, English center back that is coming out of the youth system in England, and Liverpool, we already know, have to get a homegrown quota matched. So
yeah, we had Milner leave, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain leave, and now we're about to have Henderson.
Yeah,
off into the desert. So
yeah,
we in order to register, I mean, it's kind of a shell game. Again, we don't have to register 25 players with that homegrown quota. We don't have to register.
Yeah.
Youth players can make up part of the squad as well. So it just limits the amount of non-homegrown we might be able to sign. But I don't think it's that huge of an issue, but we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah.
Once again, make sure to like and subscribe, guys. Definitely helps us out. We have around 67 people now on watching the live stream. The comments are buzzing. Please make sure to like and subscribe. It definitely helps us tremendously. On to our next topic. Sofyan Amrabat. Now, reports are coming out that if Liverpool were to pursue a deal for the Fiorentina midfielder, we would be battling it out with Man U, Barca, as well as the race. Should we be battling it out for Sofyan Amrabat at all? What's your take on the player, and do you think he'd fit the squad, considering he is a natural DM?
Yeah, well, there was some interest, in the January transfer window when we were kind of hoping for some juice in our midfield, and he had obviously a good World Cup with Morocco. And so just looking at the player, 26 years old, playing in Serie A with Fiorentina, I would be cautious in getting in a bidding war for Amrabat, I think, especially with United. I think he would be a good player to come in, especially, if we, lose, Fabinho, which looks like it's possibly going to happen. Because that would be, solidify a little more, experience in our midfield, given that he's, been playing at the senior level for much longer than the current options that we have, right now outside of Fabinho. But, there is that question sometimes of guys coming into the Premier League, and, can they succeed in the Premier League, just because we know the physicality and just how different, the league can be.
Power. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I would, for the right price, and if it's not going to cost us too much, that would be an interesting, transfer, interesting move to make. But I would just be very cautious in seeing that price tag really get up there. And I'd rather see United just overspend for them, let them deal with that, than have us kind of overextend ourselves, for that. Because there's other players that were, rumored to go after. And, I think there's be some better options in Amrabat. So it's a wait and see game with him. Certainly, I wouldn't mind seeing the player come in, because he is a nice, would fit right into that number 6 role for us. He can play somewhat of the 8 as well, but for us, he'd be mainly operating as a 6. And kind of, we would kind of have a rotation of, who would be our number 6 there. So yeah, just kind of wait and see on what the story is there.
Drew, thanks for joining us. Pinch hitting. We had someone unfortunately get stuck in traffic, couldn't make the stream, but Drew's here to save the day. How's it going, Drew?
Going good. Pretty much completely agree with what Race had to say about Amrabat. I definitely am a little worried about not having an experienced number 6 in the team this side for the season. Lavia would be a great signing, but I am worried about that experience or who could fill in behind him. I don't know if Thiago is fast enough to really stop any counters. I know he's got great tackling, but I wouldn't want him to be our starting six for the entire season because we all know that we can't rely on him to play a whole season anyway. But yeah, I'm also concerned about Amrabat's injury record. I know on Morocco, he was pretty much getting cortisone injections to get him through the matches, and I think on Fiorentina too, he isn't always a guaranteed starter. So
that also,
yeah. So all of those issues combined with the potential transfer, bidding war for him, I don't think we should get involved with that. Comes for the right price. Yeah, sure. We definitely need someone with experience, but I still don't see him being, the most ideal option for us to get in. I know I'd be selfish, but
I'm not sure how much of a step. I'm not sure how much of a level up it would be for us to bring in Amrabat. I know he's more used to playing the 6 role than the players we currently have, especially with Fabinho leaving. But I don't see him as a starter in a title-winning PL squad. I'll go over to you, Dan. What are your thoughts on Amrabat, and should we be pursuing this player at all?
Short answer, no. Long answer, I don't think it's an issue of him fitting our system. I think if we were to get him, I think he would be fine. But it would be one of those issues where you're signing a stopgap 27-year-old that you're probably going to get 1 or 2 seasons out of and then probably looking to sell on. It would be kind of similar to when we bought Shaqiri a couple years ago, though I think Shaqiri obviously had way more upside than Amrabat does because Shaqiri scored goals and goals pay the rent, so to speak. Where I think Liverpool should be looking in and where I think they are looking to do is that with Fabinho going, with potentially Henderson going within the next 2 weeks, they should just go all out on youth. And this is what I think they're going to do, and this is what I think they should do this, especially this season. If you're going to have that churn of older players, go and get, which potentially this could be happening now, go and get Thuram, go and get Gravenberch, go and get go and get Lavia. If you're going to do this midfield rebuild, do it all at once.
Rip the Band-Aid off all at once.
Exactly, because if you think about it, what Liverpool need. We think that we need a specialist DM, but Fabinho was not a specialist DM when we bought him. He played in a double pivot. He was very much not a lone DM in the way that we used him. It took him about 4 to 6 months for us to coach him into that position. Now, obviously, he was way more developed as a footballer than Gravenberch is right now, Lavia is, or Thuram was. But if I'm Klopp, if I'm Schmatka, if I'm a Liverpool analyst, I would be going all out. It's listen, Amrabat, we know what he is. We know what his ceiling is. His ceiling is, he could come in. If we brought Amrabat in, we may not win the league, but we could probably get top 4. If we bring in Thuram and Lavia, or Thuram and Gravenberch, or whoever, or just Thuram, or just Lavia, or just Gravenberch, that automatically just makes Liverpool's ceiling much higher, even if it makes our floor at the moment much lower. So we would be kind of similar to that 17-18 team, where it's just we have a lot of pace, we have a lot of energy, even though it's not quite that well-drilled, well-organized title-winning side that we had in 1920, that we essentially had in 18-19 or 21-22.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with you there, Dan. If we're gonna do it, might as well go ahead and do a full bore. And what we've seen with the budget that has been presented to us is that we either get 1 star for a good amount of money and then kind of fill in the gaps with youth players on the $4 or $5 million range for those type of youth deals, and not necessarily buying 3-4 possible stars in the making and then building them up. And if they don't work out, still have a resale value. We haven't seen that type of maneuvering lately from Liverpool.
Yeah, and I think the approach from Liverpool in this market and what they've always kind of approached the market with is they always look for value. Now, how they determine value has changed over the years because obviously, going all the way back to when FSG took over, trying to find value in Fabio Borini versus finding value in Dominic Szoboszlai is like night and day. But that's what their approach has always been, is that they're looking to get value in the market. And right now, value in the market from a Liverpool perspective is going for a Thuram Lavia or a Gravenberch, because they offer way more upside, both not only in upsell value, but what you can get out of them in, say, 5, 6, 7 years. If you have them for 5, 6, 7 years, you could sell them when they're 28. You've gotten the best years out of them. They played in a Klopp system. You've probably potentially won another title or another European Cup or a couple of the trophies. And you've essentially, hopefully by then, we've set the other team up for success that's going to come after Gravenberch and all these other teams as well.
Yeah. I agree. I think we definitely should go full bore with the youth movement, as long as obviously they have a bunch of talent to back it up as well. As mentioned before, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, folks. We're up to 73 now on the stream. Comments are looking great as well. Just hit that like button for us. It helps us out tremendously. Now on to a sad topic of mine, Fabinho, and his exit forthcoming possibly this week to Al-Ittihad. It's been rumored we'll be getting around £40 million for him. Payment structure TBD on that. Drew, I'll go over to you. How do you feel about Fabinho exiting? And is it the right time?
It's a bit of both. I really didn't want him to go. I'm a big fan of Fabinho. I just thought he had an off season last year and got a lot of unnecessary heat and blame when the entire midfield and the entire team was arguably, as a unit, just terrible for much of the season. He started to show up. I know the last 8 games are kind of dead rubbers for the most part, but I don't think you drop off like that. He showed he can step back up, and was he 29, 30?
29 going on 30.
Yeah. I think that's what makes it one of those like turning points for where we sell him. We do get that 40 million, similar to what we bought him around, and that can't be minimized, because to get a return on that kind of deal is spectacular business. So from that point of view, I can understand letting him go, especially if he wants to leave. A little bummed about Alisson losing 2 of his Brazilian buddies. I think he's just got, Adrian as one of his close friends now. Hopefully he makes some new friends from the new signings, welcomes them in. But I really liked Fabinho. It's sad to see him go, but just the business on the deal makes sense. If he wants to go, you can't just force him to stay. And it really is, the metaphor that you and Dan use, like ripping the Band-Aid off. It seems like we're just doing it all at once, and you can already see the seeds and like the roots for what this team could be. And Klopp has a full chance at building a new dynasty. So I'm excited to see what he does. I think just the timing of everybody leaving, it just seems like we lost an entire midfield. Henderson, Fabinho go too. That's like 5 midfielders that we've seen in the team for, 5 or more years, just all gone. So it's definitely going to be a different look next season. And I'm disappointed, a bit sad that Fabinho is not a part of it, but excited to see who steps up from the youngsters and who we bring in. And this is just a chance to, for players to stake a claim and, give us new heroes to root for.
Yeah, definitely opens up a huge spot in the starting lineup and a ton of minutes as well. Race, right time, right price for Fabinho to go?
Yeah, we're kind of entering this next phase of this Klopp team. Of course, we had the years of making the Champions League finals and contending for the league, and then this past year, obviously, it was just a horrible year across all fronts. And so, I think what we're seeing here is right. We're kind of assessing the squad, kind of getting like we saw with the Milner, Ox, Keita, and Firmino, departing. We're kind of clearing out all of the the deadwood. You kind of hear that term. All the deadwood, the parts where you don't really see any progression or any sort of how is this player or this move going to improve our chances going forward? And so it's, it's kind of with the Saudi Arabian League kind of splashing the cash this summer. It's kind of a good opportunity for us to capitalize and make some money because, Fabinho looks like he's going to be our high profile, our highest outgoing transfer. And so there is a business side to this, and we do need to make some money. Of course, since we don't have, the Champions League money coming in this year. So it's kind of, we're entering this next phase of our team where we do need, like you said, we need a youth movement, get some younger players in the building, not signing players that are, like we said with Amrabat, like with that, kind of 26 years old, what kind of, if signing him, what does that kind of signify with your team? Like what kind of move does that, what does that really do for your team?
Yeah, he's not a world-class player.
Right.
Not going to grow as a player at that age either. Not going to improve, in my opinion.
Yeah, I kind of think back to like the Shaqiri signing. Like we made that signing because that was kind of a win now move. Like we needed a depth piece. We needed kind of an option off the bench to provide some attacking, some attack to bring on. And then same with Thiago as well. And we brought him in. He was already, 29, 30 years old, but we needed some stability in the midfield. We needed kind of a more creative player, and we just kind of needed that instantly. Right now with our midfield, we kind of just need to, we saw this season, we just kind of needed to hit the reset button a little bit. And we've done that with signing McAllister and Szoboszlai. Of course, Curtis Jones came on towards the end of the year. And now that number 6 role, that's what is kind of our main focus right now in getting that position right. And of course, we have options in our youth, of course, by Chedic, and then you have Tyler Morton if he has a role. And then, but ideally signing a player or two to help fill that void. So we're kind of entering this next phase of, hopefully we'll be right back to the top of the league and challenging for top 4 and all that. So certainly sad to see Fabinho go because he was such a key player for our best teams and was arguably one of the best at a position, in the league, in the world. But I think his time just came, and it's kind of the perfect storm of just having a dip in form, and then these offers, big money offers come in. And so I think it's just it was the right time to move on, I think.
Yeah, I don't think the Klopp expected either Fabinho or Henderson to leave this summer, honestly. And again, that Saudi Arabian money, you can't really close your eyes at that. If I told you at the end of the season we would be getting a 40 million pound offer for Fabinho, you'd probably laugh at me. But as we've seen, it's gotten pretty crazy with all the movement happening. Dan, I'll go to you. Right time, right price. I'm thinking you're leaning
Yeah, I think it's right time, right price, and I think that's kind of the issue really that's going to come down to this rebuild is the fact that I agree with you, Rico. I don't think this was the plan. I don't think they were planning on Hendo or Fabinho being the one to leave this summer. I think the one they were expecting potentially was Thiago, which is why I think McAllister was the first one they bought. And again, I'm not saying because they don't rate with Thiago. I think that when the Saudi money started to come out in April and May, I think the ones that they were expecting was Thiago, not Henderson or Fabinho. Right now with Fabinho, I think this is the right time to sell because in a year they're not going to get 40 million. But what they're trying to do now, and I think this is where I think there is a world in a situation where neither Fabs or Hendo get their deals this summer because of like Liverpool negotiating the structure. Where the only way I see this deal not happening right now is if Liverpool really push for getting as much money as much money up front as possible, because what we've seen from these Saudi clubs, and there has been issues with it in the past, is that they will just burn through a bunch of money, not pay the rest of the transfer fees that usually are paid in installments, and then get fined from FIFA, get bailed out by the PIF, or get bailed out from private investment, and then they'll get fined again, and then maybe they pay it in like a couple years. So I think right now that it is the right time for Liverpool to sell. They should, and if it's going to come from Saudi, it should come from Saudi, but they need to make sure they get as much money up front as possible because there's no guarantee they get that full 40 million from, I think it's Al-Ittihad. Al-Ittihad is the club that he's linked with Nuno Espirito Santos' club right now. And if it does happen, I think it's a great move for Fab. He gets his money, and Liverpool get money in the bank that they can use to buy 2 mids. That's what I'm hoping they do with it. Whether they get 2 mids, I I don't know. That's what I expected they would do, because they're going to need to, especially if they lose both Fabinho and Henderson the same summer.
Yeah, definitely kind of light on numbers and experience at that point in the midfield comparatively. But perhaps an increase in talent. We'll see. Lots to shake out. Once again, make sure to like and subscribe our channel. Definitely helps us tremendously. It helps us a ton. We're up to 97 viewers now. Thank you all for joining the live stream. We appreciate you very much. Shout out to Jen, as always, supporting the stream with her donations, keeping us alive, keeping the lights on for us. On to our next topic. Captain, I wouldn't say fantastic, but Hendo, supposedly looking to trim his salary to facilitate the move to Al-Ettifaq. Wow. What a nightmare PR situation for Henderson and his people, I think. I'll go over to you, Drew. I think he's looking tremendously bad on his exit out of Liverpool. What are your thoughts on Henderson and his forthcoming move, hopefully, to Al-Ettifaq?
Yeah, I think just the way it's unfolding doesn't help. I think, every Liverpool fan will appreciate the leadership that he's had, at least off the pitch over the years. On the field, he's definitely had some good years. He's, injuries and age kind of, affected the latter years of his campaigns with us. But when the news first came out, I was, very shocked and surprised. But at the same time, felt, that's a lot of money at this stage in his career. Maybe he's looking to set up his, the future Henderson generations for life. He's put in his service to the club. But the longer it drags on, it just seems kind of sour. I can't imagine what it's like having him in the training camps, knowing that he wants to go. Doesn't seem to be smiling in any photos.
How awkward, right?
And I think that's really what it comes down to. It's like, the club interested in him, wanted him to, on a free, and Liverpool's just like, no, you can't have him for free. And there's just this like haggling back and forth, and meanwhile Henderson's stuck in the middle of it. It's not a clean break. It's not just like, oh, they bid this, they bid 30 million, it's done, thank you everybody, thank you supporters. It's just kind of dragging on, and I think that's what hurts the most, because now it's like the rumors being that he's offering a pay cut to force the move, and it's just messy. I don't wish bad on him, or I don't hold it against him in any way. I just hope it gets cleaned out as quickly as possible and he can move on. I don't think that it changes his legacy necessarily. I know a lot of pundits and some fans are saying, that he's just going for the money and, it's tarnishing his reputation. But I think all the human rights stuff he's done, equal rights stuff he's done, that will be, a tough one for him to navigate moving forward. I hope he is able to make some headlines in a positive way with that kind of thing. But just on the footballing side, I don't think you can hate him for making this move. It's literally setting up his future. And you've seen plenty of examples of sports stars and football players who, ran out of money or didn't plan for the future. And you can't blame someone for wanting to secure that future for him and his family. So he's put in the shifts for us. I wish him nothing but the best moving forward. But I do hope this gets wrapped up cleanly and we can move on, because the more it drags on, the more, like you said, it's just going to be awkward. Nobody wants that.
I'll go to you now, Dan. I'm sure you probably been in a situation where you've had a fellow coworker who put in their 2 weeks notice, and they're just kind of just writing it out up until their time is done before they leave. Should Henderson have stayed behind like Fabinho did and not joined the preseason, or I think it just opens it up for awkwardness and a little weirdness having him at that preseason with his impending move coming? You're on mute.
Sorry, I thought I hit Control D. So as far as we're aware from the reports coming out, is that the club are the ones that asked Fabinho to stay. That we don't know, like if Fabs was like pushing to go in the preseason camp. That Liverpool are the ones that are keeping Fabinho right now in Liverpool. I imagine because that deal is so far along that's probably going to be done by Wednesday or Thursday. I would imagine that you would see an announcement. Henderson, I could see dragging on for a while. And again, going back to what I said earlier, Al-Ettifaq, this team that Steven Gerrard is the manager of, they're not a club that's backed by the Saudi National Fund, the Sovereign Wealth Fund, and they're not backed by private investment, so they don't have a lot of liquidity as far as we're aware. So any sort of deal, there's no guarantee that they will pay out the full value of that deal. So if they agree to 20 million, they may only end up paying 10 or 5 or 7 or 18. Because I saw a comment saying, why are we negotiating over 5 or 10 million? The reason is because there's no guarantee that even if we negotiate that low, that Liverpool will get the full valuation from this club, because it's not a cash-rich club right now in terms of paying out a transfer fee and a massive contract. I think the decision to allow him to go on the tour seems a bit awkward from the outside looking in, but obviously since we're not on the inside, we're not professionals, I imagine on the inside they're going to absolutely be giving Henderson so much grief in the camp, and I think he's just going to have to deal with that in many ways. And I feel like if Henderson was like, had any other person and didn't have his personality, I think it would be more of an issue. But I think right now Henderson is, very good professional, probably can put his head down, work on and be like, if this deal goes through and I can help facilitate it, great, because I'm getting this contract. If not, it's not the end of the world. I'm in this preseason camp. I'm helping us get better. I'm going to put my all into working for it as well. And the thing is that, so someone mentioned the rainbow laces, Henderson being a outspoken advocate for the LGBTQ plus community. That's honestly Henderson's, hypocrisy to deal with, his weight to burden in many ways. I'm not a member of the community, so I can't vouch for his allyship in one way or the other. But I think what it does show from Henderson is that if this move does go through, I think that his camp and himself have very clearly kind of, made a rod for their own back, because he has chosen to be this outspoken leader for social issues and has chosen to be essentially a captain among captains. And with this move seemingly potentially going through, but could also fall apart, he's essentially just put himself in such a terrible position. And, and I would be more worried about him going to this camp if Klopp didn't want him there, or if the players didn't want them there. But obviously he's there and he's doing what he needs to do. So I think right now all we can do is just sit back and, just let the deal happen or not happen as it goes. And, just, I hate to say trust the process, because it's a very cliche thing as well. But, we've seen players for years, Suarez, Gerrard, push for moves that fall apart, and we worry about how it's going to disrupt their preseason. And then they go on and have amazing seasons, or, have an amazing career, with Liverpool, or as Suarez's case is after Liverpool and Barcelona. So I think we can't read too much into it right now until we just honestly see what happens one way or the other.
Thanks, Dan. Race, what about you? Do you think we should have left Hendo home to take care of business instead of bringing him to camp in Germany?
Well, we can't forget, he is the captain of the club right now. I mean, he is that. So to leave your captain behind when a move isn't 100%, finished, I think that would have been just a nightmare there. He is the captain. He is the leader. He's well respected within the team, for everything, for all the shortcomings on the field, off the field, I'm sure, he's a tremendous guy. I'm sure all the players enjoy him, have no ill thoughts about him. I just wonder, though, from the players' perspective of, losing a guy like Henderson on the field and his ability. I mean, they had to know that, he wasn't good last year. He's washed. They had to know, man, this guy again, they have to. They're not, they're smart guys too. They know that, his time has come. And
every time I see Salah run up from those hoof balls, all right, I gotta run. He just booted it 3 rows
Yeah.
into the stands, but I still got to run.
Yeah. I'm sure they understand the dilemma that Henderson is dealing with right now, and in wanting to stay and be a part of a winning team and being the leader versus wanting some game time somewhere else, albeit in the Saudi Arabian league. But I think that from the other players' perspective, I don't think it's causing any sort of rift. I mean, they understand that the football's a business, and there's sometimes transfers and moves like this. It's not always smooth sailing, especially with negotiations. And of course, when it's your captain, your leader, that's wanting to depart, it's certainly an interesting subplot of this preseason. But of course, Henderson had that talk with Klopp, and I'm sure they talked about a reduced minutes for Henderson, and Henderson's like, hey, there's probably part of him that wants to stay at Liverpool and fight for his spot, but maybe he's seeing these new guys come in and training. He just knows that, man, am I really gonna,
There were reports that he did go into camp and had a conversation with Klopp, and Klopp told him, be prepared to sit a lot this year.
Right.
And that's when we kind of got the reports of him leaving.
Right. And as a professional, you want to, especially with the role that Henderson has played for our team, you want to fight for your spot. And especially as the captain, I'm sure he feels the responsibility to be to lead out the team every single match and be one of the first names on the sheet. But the reality is he just isn't that guy anymore and hasn't been for some time. So, I mean, I don't think there's any drama within the team or anything like that. Like I said, we've seen this before. I remember with Coutinho as well. Like that was a move. He was kind of batting his eyelashes at Barcelona for half a season and then was sold in January. But even when he did, but obviously a different type of player. But Coutinho was still playing for us and he was performing well before he left. And so Henderson, it's a different story. But this deal right now, I thought when the Fabinho and Henderson, both of those were reported, I thought the Henderson one would have been done first and more of a certain thing rather than Fabinho, but now I've seen Fabinho as more of a done deal. And so we'll just wait and see if Henderson ends up, if negotiations break down, Henderson ends up staying with the club. I think it's pretty known that, with the talks that he's had that, have a reduced role. But we'll see what happens with Henderson if he's willing to take a pay cut to, seek some more playing time, I guess.
We'll probably see after Wednesday to see if Henderson gets some game time. I think that'll kind of be the telltale sign to see how far along the deal is. If he plays like 30 or 45 minutes in that game, there's probably a possibility that this deal probably takes 2 or 3 weeks, or longer. It goes all the way to deadline day. And I think it's probably the deal right now of the deals with Fabinho and Henderson. I think it's the most likely to not come to fruition, even if Henderson tries to pay part of his transfer fee, which is something that doesn't usually happen. And I think there's only like 1 or 2 occasions that it has happened. And I think that was when, Mbappe trying to go to PSG or trying to go to Madrid, tried to make that happen. I think Neymar kind of the same thing, trying to get back to Barcelona, was trying to do the same thing. But yeah, and I agree with Race in many ways that you kind of have to take your captain. And in Henderson's position, they're all professionals. They understand what's at stake. And they also understand that if Henderson stays for a year, that he's not going to be a distraction. And if he's playing, 10 games, 15 games, like he's still going to provide on the pitch in certain occasions, if not, technically or in his, overall footballing skills, he will be there as a leader, as a model professional, which I think people use as like a stick to beat him with, because it's like, well, we have Van Dijk and Alisson and all these other leaders. And
it's way overblown to me. Yeah, I'll beat him.
I agree with you, Rico, to some extent, but it is important that if you're going to wear the captain's armband, that you are setting an example from that armband. The reason we have Alisson and Thiago and all these other professionals follow those roles is because someone is setting the example in the locker room. And I always bring up the fact that one thing we lost when we lost Lallana was that Lallana was just such a good trainer that he kept so many people on point so many times during those years we had him, even when he wasn't playing. And people would ask, like, what does Lallana bring? And that off the field training side of it cannot be like, I think at times it gets overblown. And I would agree with you on that, Riga. I do think it gets overblown at times, but at other times it's completely invaluable. and you can't put a price on how much that actually gives your team that extra effort to drive, to win, to put into games.
All right, and I want to thank Ash for his super sticker here. He's bringing up that subject, and you kind of touched on it a little bit ago, Dan, as far as Hendo going to Saudi Arabia and in a some might perceive betraying his allyship with the LGBTQ community. I'll go to you, Drew, on this. What's your take on that? Do you think it's a bit? Should we be focusing on Henderson as perhaps betraying that community, or perhaps take a step back and take a look at this entire league that's reaping the huge rewards financially from these transfer fees from the Saudi Arabia league? Should we focus on the players or on the institutions themselves?
I think it's all up in the air for judgment. I mean, it's all out there. Everyone's free to have their opinion, and however it makes them feel, it's fair. I hesitate to criticize Henderson too much because we also don't know what he's going to do moving forward. For all we know, he could donate, half his salary to LGBTQIA plus communities. Like, he could still do stuff behind the scenes and kind of like giving the finger while he's playing in a way, or saying this is a part. We don't know, honestly. I think everyone's free and fair to make judgments from the initial news, but we honestly don't know how it moves forward. And like I said before, I can't blame him for wanting to secure his future and the future for his family. You don't know what could happen. He could get injured. He could, there could be family illness, whatever you want. Like, that money can go out the window. Not saying he shouldn't be responsible with what he's made, or he hasn't made a lot already, but this is a potential guaranteed setup for his entire future. As far as the league and the institutions behind it, I honestly am not an expert in any of these kind of political situations or news. So I hesitate to put forth any strong opinions other than, against human rights violations and, anything against women or the gay community. Not for that at all. And on the surface, it's just that this country and this league has a lot of money to spend, and that's going to turn a lot of heads because there's a lot of, uncertainty in life in general. And if you can guarantee you and your family, money for the rest of your life, I don't know many people who would turn that down on the surface of it. So again, I think for me, I just look at Henderson as a player, what he's done for the club, thankful and grateful for his service. I've been a Henderson, I hesitate to say hater, but I've been very annoyed at Henderson on the pitch for a few seasons. I think that contrasts with or goes along with his stubbornness for wanting to play. I'm kind of the person, when I play, it's like if I'm gassed or if I'm not playing my best, I'm going to raise my hand and take myself out of the game and say that there's someone better who should be on the pitch than me at the moment. Henderson is not that guy. He wants to be starting every match. He's been quoted as saying as such.
He's not going to pull a Marco Royce and voluntarily step into the background, giving up his captain's armband for the better of the team. That was my concern coming into this season. Will he be able to take a step back and lead from the back and support the team? And I wasn't fully confident he'd be prepared to do that.
There's some admiration for that attitude of never giving up and always wanting to fight for your place and everything. But I think that's where you have that for me is where coaching comes in. That's where manager Klopp makes the decisions like, hey, you're not good enough anymore. That's it. You can deal with it or you can leave. And that seems to be the situation. That's what managing is about, because I don't want a player who look at the Ricky Lambert situation, who he was kind of just happy to be around, be on the bench, and later said he regretted not coming into the team, wanting to play first string. I think you need to want to be starting. You want to be the best. You want to be the player, the go-to guy. That's the hunger that you need to play in the team on Liverpool at the top of the game. And that's what I want in the club. So I don't hate Henderson for that, but that's not the role he's going to play. And Klopp's right to tell him you're going to get benched. And if he wants to go, thank you for your service. Wish you the best moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree with you there, Drew. Every player on the squad, you would hope that they'd have the attitude that they want to be the best at their position and play every match and do the best possible. But also, if that's not the case, you just continue working and not make a big stink or big fuss or put out with your journalist friends any rumors of you being unhappy, et cetera, et cetera. And that's where, again, I was kind of hesitant to kind of be all gung ho and happy that Henderson was going to stay with the squad for this year. I'll go back to you. I'll go over to you, Race, on this subject here. With Henderson possibly going to Saudi Arabia, do you think we should be focusing on him as far as turning his quote unquote back on the LGBT community, or should we take a step back and kind of look at the EPL as a whole, and they're more than happy to take all this funding from the Saudi Arabia League? Who should we be focusing on? I think we shouldn't be focusing on Henderson, at least in my opinion. Not for this, not on this subject.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. You know, we're seeing this rush of these moves of these players going to Saudi Arabia now to play. And of course, you know, with their human rights record over there, you know, just not good at all. I'm trying to think of some words on that. You know, it's definitely, yeah, it's a dilemma. You know, you want to, that money is very hard to turn down. And sometimes, you know, you have to look yourself in the mirror and think, you know, kind of what you stand for. And if you do go there, you know, are you going to be someone who's going to, you know, make, you know, try and turn their human rights record around and try to make it a positive impact over there, you know? And maybe that is some of the reasoning and going over there, along with, you know, playing there as well. You know, of course we don't, you know that personally with the players and whatnot. You know, it's tough to speak on just exactly where their head is at and where their mind is at. And of course, and unfortunately we see, especially in soccer or football, in FIFA and all that, you know, there's a lot of, you know, some dirty money out there, and, you know, it's not always just so much, you know, corruption and all that. You know, so it's sometimes it's tough to really hold yourself to a true higher standard when sometimes it's just not possible. In this case, certainly there is a choice of going there to play, and taking that money and you know, living in that country and whatnot. So it's I'm just, you know, trying to you know, put it in words here and trying to think you know what the best move is for all these players, and you know, how exactly this league will move forward and all that, and see if there's any more players that we see go there, you know, big names and stuff like that. Because while Henderson isn't a big name, but certainly within the Premier League is a well-known name. And so you know, we'll see if any other players, you know, decide to go over there, any more high-profile ones.
Yeah, I don't think that train's stopping. It's just going to keep continuing. Latest is Moussa Diaby, young player, French right winger playing for Bayer Leverkusen, who looks primed to make a jump to the Premier League. Might be going Saudi, and that to me is like, man, like I'm all for any league that wants to grow, be a great league. I would want MLS to, you know, blow up, continue growing with Messi coming in as well. Just continue growing the quality of football. Just, you know, I love football. I love watching it, and the more there is, the better. But at the same time, I would love these players to kind of either hit the Premier League, La Liga, Serie A, the big European leagues, and build those up before they kind of go for that big bag over in Saudi Arabia. But again, everyone is free to make their own choices and pursue their own happiness, and I don't think we as people can ever chastise or go after anybody for doing what's best for them and their family, so long as they're not hurting anybody else. And I really think we and again, I'm not part of the community, but we as people can't come down on Henderson on that respect. I mean, again, just my opinion. All right. comments are on and popping here. A lot
I think
of
Dan wanted to chime in here.
Strong opinions. Go right ahead. I'm looking for other stuff.
Sorry, I think
Go right ahead.
I think I'm the last. I think I'm the last Liverpool. I think I'm the last Henderson fan left in the Liverpool community sometimes as well. Because I get what you mean, Rio, when you say like you feel like there is this argument that's existed that Henderson should be like Royce and put up his armband for like a better player, a better teammate. And I know someone mentioned it earlier, and I think it was I can't remember if it was you or Rigo who mentioned the Ricky Lambert story, and how like when you have a player that kind of starts to decline physically or technically in many ways, usually it's physically first before it's technical. You do want them to someone who wants to be involved in the team, because that drive, that initiative, like I had mentioned earlier with Lana, is what makes a team better. And for Henderson's perspective, like he's well within his right to be like, no, I want to play as much as possible. You don't want, your captain be someone to be like, you know what, guys, I'm done. I can't do this no more. I can't do this no more. Just I'm gonna collect my paycheck and go sit on the bench, because that just sends like the wrong message that you want your captain to be. And I think there is an argument for, I know you mentioned Marco Royce, but I think the difference between Henderson and Royce is that Royce has had so many terrible injuries, like so many, where this man is playing with like replaced knees, replaced like ligaments. This man is held together with like duct tape and glue at this point. And I feel so bad for Marco Reus, because I love him as a player. I loved him as a person, as a captain for Borussia Dortmund, and even when he was at Borussia Mönchengladbach as well. And so there is a saying where Henderson is, even though he has pushed for this move seemingly, is you do want someone who is going to be there, that wants to be there, wants to play as well. And that's just all I wanted to say. And if Henderson does play, he will be able to offer something on the pitch, even though people like to say the Henderson hoofball, which I think that's a 2-bit reductive of what Henderson does or offers on a pitch in many ways.
You're right. That is easy. For me, my biggest pet peeve with Henderson is his non-physicality and inability to put his foot in for a tackle or play good defense at this point, which is what's needed in that right-sided role to kind of cover for Salah and Trent. And then the domino effect of Trent getting all the crap laid on him for having to guard two people, because Henderson just lets his man through.
Yeah, and I think it's more down to the fact that how Henderson has played that position for the past 3 years, where he's been asked to do less and less of, be a James Milner, go in and put your foot on the ball, tackle someone, let them know you're in a game, and leave a mark on somebody. He's very much always been like a shadow presser, someone who passes on, who's blocking passing lanes, rather than being someone who is constantly engaging, like a Thiago or like a Keita, or like someone who is constantly trying to like hunt and win the ball in some ways. So I get what you're saying, and I think that that's a very when you're watching the game, it is very frustrating, because you're like, Henderson, if you just tackle this play. I remember watching the United game last year, and I'm like, Henderson, someone just tackle the guy and we can stop this counterattack. Why are we just letting them run? I do understand that frustration. I think that is very valid frustration, a very valid criticism of how Henderson has played his position. And that's why I'm all for playing Dominic Szoboszlai as much as possible, or another player. But also, I think it's also like that. I think also we shouldn't go too far and say like that Henderson has nothing to offer, on a football pitch, as a footballer in many ways. Listen, if you have that opinion, Rigo, that's your opinion, man. I don't agree with it personally. I understand why you have that opinion, but I personally disagree, just from my point of view. But again, like I said, I am a heartfelt, love Henderson, loved him for all the years he's been at Liverpool. Yeah, and also I just want to clarify at the end that if Henderson does end up going to Saudi Arabia, his issue, like that issue with his representation of the LGBTQ community, like you mentioned, Rigo, we should obviously blame the structural, the states, the institutions, the associations. I absolutely agree. We should not blame the players. However, in Henderson's case, because he made himself an outspoken ally, he is going to get stick for it, and he deserves to get stick for it, because he's made this something that he stood up and said, I believe in this. This is what I support. And, that is going to be his burden to bear. And, whether he gets stick or not is, completely up to very, very individualistic. people, but he will deservedly get stick for it if this move goes through, or just wanting to get this move in the first place.
Yeah, and again, and being in the public eye, you're going to get stick one way or the other. So it's par for the course. All right, changing topic here. We're still at 92 viewers right now. Thank you all for hopping on, and make sure you hit that like button and that subscribe button. It helps us out tremendously. Before we wrap up today's stream, I kind of want to go around table here with, while we're on the subject of Henderson, the next subject is who should be the next team captain. And I'll go over to you, Drew. Whose hat would you throw in the ring as far as being team captain, and why?
I personally would pick Alisson. I think he's a tremendous leader. Seems to be a friendly guy that gets along with everyone in the team, and he's not a pushover. You see him yelling at players. You see him holding them to standards, calling them out. Seems to be a leader on the pitch. I know Van Dijk would be, is the co-captain. After Milner left and Henderson behind him, he'd get the armband. But I would choose Alisson. I think he's the leader on the team. He's been one of our best players each and every single season. I don't think he's had a single terrible season with us. The odd mistake that he makes are far and few between, and he more than makes up for it. Just seems to be a guy that I think everyone in the team could rally behind. I'm also curious, though, just a little side note, is if Salah throws his hat in the ring, because I remember him being a bit frustrated on not getting the armband one game and making a little deal out of it, and Klopp being like, I didn't realize it was that important. So I'm curious to see what kind of dynamic falls if Salah possibly gets a co-captain. Alisson for me, captain, and then maybe 3 co-captains. I don't know.
Vice captains? Do they refer to them as vice captains?
Yeah, vice captains. But I'm wondering, because you had Van Dijk as the third, or the third choice in the run for captain. I'm wondering if you can just add a 4th and make everyone happy. Alisson, Van Dijk, Salah. Just throw Trent in there as well. Why not, right?
Yeah, all good suggestions so far. I haven't heard from you in a minute, Race. Who's your shot for team captain, and why?
Well, I think Liverpool have like a leadership type of group, and it's I think Alisson, Van Dijk, Robertson, Salah, and Trent, and of course I think Henderson was a part of that. There is a part of that. I think that's kind of their group of leaders. I think they have, and so yeah, I think Alisson is definitely a good shout there. I would have just said Van Dijk just because of an outfield player kind of is what you think of. I know I know with Netherlands, it's like, I guess he's not the best captain with Netherlands, or there's something with that, but I would still I'd be comfortable with seeing Van Dijk as our captain. Robertson would kind of be my kind of outside look in there, just because he's been obviously an important piece of our team, very strong leader, very hard worker. I mean, look at a guy who came from nothing in Scotland, rose up through the ranks there, and Hull City, and then we signed him for a cheap deal, and he's just like a real hard worker and stuff like that. So he would be another kind of option for there. If you think about Trent as a captain, I think that's kind of more of a long-term thing. He's just not quite there yet because we have so many other great leaders in our team. But if there's a cup game or a game where he's kind of the experienced guy on the field, you can see him having the armband, and then Salah, of course, too. I think just with he's kind of maybe one of those more silent lead by example type guys. Just with the incredible work rate that he has and how much production he's given us. But yeah, I guess Alisson or Van Dijk would be my kind of 2 options there. You could pick either one. I don't think either's a bad choice.
All right, so Alisson for Drew, Alisson or Van Dijk for Race. Third up in the batting order, my man Dan. Who do you think should be the team captain, and why?
I think it's Alisson, in my opinion. I understand the shouts for Van Dijk. But when Van Dijk's captain, and you kind of see this a lot when he's had the armband, he's not a very vocal leader in that way that Henderson kind of gets criticized for. We just shouts at everyone the whole game. I think Alisson's the best situation because I feel like he's a good character. He's good leader on the pitch. I've read somewhere in the comments that someone doesn't like goalkeeper captains, which I understand, but I think Alisson's an exception in many ways because he's just such a big personality as well. I imagine right now that they're doing the voting of the captaincy order going into this year at this camp, where they're going to vote for the next vice captain.
Does Jordan have a vote?
I imagine he does because he's there. So you gotta let your captain have an opinion.
Have you sit this one out, Chief?
No, I mean he's still that would be funny. I would love to see that. I would love to see where Klopp just goes like, Hendo, you don't get a vote. I'm just kidding, and then he just lets him vote. That guy, I could see them giving him so much grief right now.
He hands in his vote, they just flip it off.
Yeah. Well, like they hand it to him and they just throw it in the trash can behind him. Like, not even rip it up. I think it's
Florida here.
Yeah, I think it's Alisson would be my shout. I imagine Virgil will probably be made vice captain, or he's made full captain. I imagine be vice captain, and I imagine in the order it'd probably go Trent or Salah will be 3 or 4, and how they do it. Because I imagine in a game you're either going to have one of Alisson, Van Dijk, Salah, or Trent. I don't think there's going to be many games where all of them will be sitting. Someone will play, even if it's a Europa League game. Where Trent will probably play in midfield, or Alisson will be goalkeeper, or Mo will probably start up top. In many ways, but that would be who I shows were. I saw someone mention Robertson, and I love that idea of Robertson being a captain. But I also think Robertson is just kind of too much of a prankster to be captain. Like I think he's too much. Like I don't think he would just be good. Like I understand the thing because he's such a leader on the pitch. Listen, El Hero, I agree with you, man. Robbo is a good shout, but I think Robbo he's one of those guys where. Do you really want to give the guy who's the prankster and the funny one of the group all the power? Where he's just
and the hothead. He's a bit of a hothead too.
Yeah, and he's gonna get sent off a couple times. And listen, I think that's an underrated tactic. Have someone who's a hothead. I think that's a good thing to have someone who's a captain who's just gonna get frustrated and kick the other opponent. I think that's always a good thing to have. But in Robbo's case, I think you need someone who's a little bit more balanced, I would say, who has a good personality but is also not too much of a prankster as well.
Yeah, I mean, last year we had a referee grabbing him by the arm, so I don't know how.
Oh yeah, and I completely forgot about that. And I thank you for reminding me. I'm still upset about that. That's one thing right there. That's listen, I referee soccer matches, so I've never touched an opponent player, so this is what they tell us.
Football? I didn't hear you, man.
Soccer, football. I'm sorry. We can get into a history of the etymology of soccer and football as terminologies, but yeah. So I think Alisson would be the best shout, and I think so. We have 3 people vote on Alisson, so I think Alisson is now the captain. I'm gonna go ring up my good friend John Henry, see if he can make that happen. Make him happen tomorrow.
And Dan is in Boston, so he's close by. So,
I know where he lives. I know where one of his houses is. I'm right down the street from Fenway. I'm less than a block away from Fenway Park. So, if someone needs me to go deliver a letter, I got my whole dress set up. I'll dress up and drive a black Escalade. It's Mr. Henry, your request, sir.
Now you kind of open yourself up. If anything bad ever happens to John Henry, this live stream right here has you recorded.
They're gonna confine me. No. I don't know who this man is. This is not my real name.
Oh man, well, my shout for team captain would be our Scouse right back, Trent Alexander-Arnold. 24 years old already. Steven Gerrard became captain at age 23. I think Trent would be the most natural line of succession. English, Scouse. Well, Scouts first, obviously. Went through a Liverpool academy, one of the best at his position in the world. No drop-off that we can foresee happening for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years, possibly. And even then, he can get shifted from right back to a midfield role if his legs are kind of going the way of Henderson, I guess. So my shot would be Trent as captain to succeed Jordan. I think that would be the best option, best choice for us. All right. 79 strong still on the stream. We're at 1 hour and 9 minutes. I think we're probably going to wrap it up now. Closing thoughts from you guys. Final thought for you guys. For each of you. So I'll give you time to think about it real quick. who would be your number one incoming target now that we have supposedly funds in the bank? I'll go with Drew.
Thuram, move on.
All right, cut from Tehran. Hey, I saw on Twitter that we're checking flight manifests and all this, and there's flights heading from Nice to Blackpool, etc. So maybe that'd be awesome. I'm definitely a Tehran fan myself. Race, who's your number one choice?
Before I give my answer, I just want to give my thoughts and prayers to Naby Keita, who suffered another injury with Werder Bremen before their first preseason game. Is out for a few weeks. So I just wanted to know that we're all thinking of him once again, of course. But in all seriousness, though, my ideal transfer
at that point, that how awful. Like, to me, like, your dream, what you want to do, and you constantly just can't do it. I don't think it's his fault being injured. It's just your body. Some dudes' bodies just can't handle it.
Yeah, I think. Well, that's We'll just leave it at that. And then, but my ideal transfer, I think, would be I would like to see Lavia come in. I think he's be a nice youthful guy to slide into our midfield. Obviously, having Premier League experience already and excelling for Southampton. And I saw something about we have the guys that we've picked up from relegated sides. Wijnaldum, Robertson, Shaqiri. Those are all really worked out for us. So I think if we can kind of keep that track record going there, I'd like to see Lavia come in.
All right, awesome, great shout, Romeo for race. All right, Dan, you're second to last, because then I'll offer my opinion. But go right ahead.
Well, I'm going to cheat real quick, and I'm going to say that overall, I would love if we got Colwill, because that would just solve so many problems going forward in the defense. If we're deciding a midfielder, I'm split between Thuram, Gravenberch, and Lavia. I think either of those would be amazing, because you're again evolving the position going forward. For me, I think Thuram is the most exciting. I know someone who mentioned Caicedo. The one reason I would not want Caicedo is that he's 5'10". He's shorter than Lavia. He's short. He's a small boy. Like we need tall lads. We need all the tall lads in the midfield. So I think Thuram, in my opinion, would be the most exciting midfield player, because he's 6'4". You can mold him into a defensive mid. He's a dribbler, so he won't lose the ball. He can get the ball on the half space on the turn and move us up the pitch through his progressive dribbling as well. And I think that if you sign Thuram, your midfield six is good for like 8 years. And when you think about, we've only had Fabinho for 4, and probably his best years were we've only had him really for 3 solid good years. Or 2 of those were in the midfield, because he spent 1 year as a center back. And yes, I know Thuram isn't necessarily a defensive mid and like a sitting position, but we could evolve into that more of a dynamic 6.
Neither was Genie. Genie was also he was
exactly
an attacking midfielder and
exactly. And I think if we sign one of those lads, I think it'll just be amazing regardless.
All right. So we have Drew. Who'd you go with?
Thuram.
Race, who'd you go with?
Lavia.
And Dan?
I said Colwill, but honestly, I'll love anybody.
I take that too.
All right. For myself, since we have a couple of extra dollars now that with Henderson and Fabinho leaving, I would still make a run at Josko Vardiol. And I think he would just solve a bunch of stuff for us from that left center back position, as far as succession planning for the day Virgil decides to hang up his boots. But in the short term, just take that right into that place with Robbo and kind of assume the mantle of that left back / left center back position, and just be there for the next 10 years. Grew up a Liverpool fan. He's Croatian. Up until last season, I think you needed a Croatian to win the Champions League. They're very good luck in European tournaments, so I think it would bode us very well. I certainly hope he doesn't go to Man City. That would hurt, but my shot would be Josko Vardiol. But for myself, Rigo, as well as Dan, Race, and Drew, we'd like to thank you all for joining today's stream. If you haven't already, make sure to hit like and subscribe. We appreciate you all very much. Those of you on the comments and the chat, love you guys. It makes this stream that much more fun having that interaction, and we couldn't do it without you. We'd just be talking amongst ourselves. So thank you for tuning in. I hope you guys have a great night, and YNWA. Take care.